Hi and welcome to the Attention Seeking Podcast. I'm Chris Healey, a coach of adults with Adhd. For this edition, I'm so excited to welcome a very special guest, Richard Bacon. A fascinating character, he made his name as a TV and radio presenter, and very early in his career was a victim of tabloid expose culture that placed him at the centre of a national scandal while working at Blue Peter. He then impressively rebuilt his career through Big Breakfast and key anchor presenting, particularly on Radio 5 Live. He moved to LA in 2014, and since has presented on ABC and more recently on Good Morning Britain, all the while reinventing himself as an exciting and successful TV producer. In the last 2 years, a trio of shows, The Hustle, This Is My House, and I Literally Just Told You, have been hits. And the second episode of I Literally Just Told You had my girlfriend and me in stitches at New Year. With these new TV successes under his belt, Richard Bacon seems to have created a truly wonderful horizon ahead of him. Personally, I've always been interested in his fairly unique career path, impressed with his guts and sheer determination to come back from that scandal and prove his worth, with a mixture of clear humility, endearing, inoffensive ideas, and a palpable professionalism. His sheer talent and hard work has deservedly earned him his current success. But a few years ago, when I caught by chance him being interviewed about his diagnosis of ADHD in late adulthood, I was transfixed throughout. I was at the same time undiagnosed, and I suspected, or rather I knew I had the condition. But as I listened to his story in my car by chance, I related to so many elements of the condition he described. The hope he offered in explaining how diagnosis and medication had helped him directly led me to pushing for my own medical diagnosis. The day before my assessment, I even tweeted him to ask which medication he'd found to be so useful, and I was so surprised that he took the time and bothered to reply within an hour. So strangely, though we've never met, Mr. Bacon has inadvertently been a key part of my own ADHD journey. Richard Bacon, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview, and welcome to the Attention Seeking Podcast.
Thanks, I've got a very nice intro on a podcast.
So, first, just to start us off, where are you joining me from today?
Well, I'm in Los Angeles. This is my living room in my house in that area called the Bird Street, which is just between West Hollywood and Beverly.
Nice, very nice. I can see the weather looks awful in the background there.
Can you hear me okay? Is the sound okay?
It is okay with me. Can you hear me okay?
There you look. You can see the weather out there.
Oh yes, yep, that's lovely. we had about 20 minutes of sunshine where I am here in the UK at the moment today. I'm up in the West Midlands at the moment near Coventry. I've moved out of London recently. Yeah. What are you based in LA at the moment?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and I've been inventing game shows as you mentioned, entertainment. I've been doing some more as well. You kindly mentioned the first three, and made a pilot of a new one I think is going to be on TV and pitching others, writing others, and then I'm starting a company of my own. So far I've always partnered with other TV companies for my own ideas. Okay. And then within the next 2 months, I'll start my own, and I'm in the process of raising funding for that company as well. So because I'm going to not only try and invent more television shows, but also I'm going to start on work in apps and tech. So standalone apps, but also looking at where apps and television can intersect. So things, for example, the tricks you can do with an iPhone and a smartphone that may form part of a reality television show. So,
yeah.
And I am back home a lot though, or pretty much every month. We're just wrapping season 2 of This Is My House, and I hosting Good Morning Britain a couple of weeks ago, and some of the funding for my company is going to come from London and from Paris. So I'm home all the time, really. I really am at home a lot.
So interesting. What could have made you want to relocate to LA?
It was, I like change and I like to keep moving. That may be a part of ADHD, that I can't really sit still. And I think, metaphorically and literally, that I like to keep moving and pacing around the house. And I like a change, and so we wanted to take a risk. And I moved here to host things. And you mentioned I did some hosting. I worked at Fox, ABC News, and National Geographic here. And and then got into this, creating formats thing. And there's a big overlap between being a host and creating formats, because I create from the perspective of the host, and then I get to run them through as well.
Yeah.
But I came here to host, and then I think we thought we'd only be here a couple of years. And our kids were 1 and 3 when we came here, and then
right.
And so this is all they know, really. This is their home. They've got American accents, not very good ones. They've got their friends that are here, and I suppose in the end it becomes like a way of life thing. And I do miss a lot about home, and I miss being a full-time host. I only do a bit of it now. It's more exciting to be on the radio every day than it is trying to work out a format for a company. These things are not that exciting. There are points when they can become exciting, but they're not exciting on like minute by minute, day-to-day basis. Whereas if you're doing something like 5 Live that you mentioned, it really can be. So I miss that, but and I think having ADHD doesn't make me suited to coming up with ideas. But I think that again, it's about change and wanting to keep changing and moving forward.
Yeah, and I really understand that. And it's interesting. This wasn't one of my prepared questions or anything, but I'm thinking about how you're saying you preferred almost the live electricity of being a host on a show that's live. And I'm just wondering, in the brain chemicals, the fact that the noradrenaline isn't transmitted as well, these are the sort of things that are almost thrill-seeking that probably give you that energy when you were doing those live shows, I would assume. And that's probably why now you're not quite as...
You move very quickly, and you're thinking, I like thinking on my feet as well and making quick decisions. And being on the radio in a live speech environment is like doing GMB. You've got to sort of quickly think and make decisions. And I like that. I was just going to say that I remember once my mum said to me, "Chris, you're really good in a crisis," and my answer was kind of, "Well, Mum, that's because my life is in continual crisis, to be honest." And it's apparently quite a paradoxical trait. In a book, ADHD 2.0, they say that people with ADHD are excellent in a real high-pressure crisis, but they also often have a quite chaotic life going on as well. So it's a weird paradox. And I was thinking of, with you, are there times, because I can imagine with live TV, I don't mean specifically the channel, though you were involved in that, but with live TV or The Big Breakfast or with radio, have there been times where things have sort of been crashing all around you and you've managed to really hold it together and that kind of switch in? Over all of the years of doing so much live TV, I started my career at 17 in local radio, doing small bits on air, a weekend show. When I was kind of 18, 19, I started to work on the breakfast show on BBC Radio Nottingham, taking out the radio car, like the sort of a mission kit on wheels, and interviewing people on location. And but next year I'll be 47, so next year will be 30 years really since I started actually doing anything on working in the media, and I'm still here. And I think over the course of that time, loads of stuff has gone wrong. You can't remember it all because you do so much stuff. But I've absolutely had things go wrong. But also, you in a way, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's about being good in a crisis with an ADHD mindset, but it's also, it comes with experience. So if something goes wrong in a live environment, it's better for the show. So you actually learn to become stiller and calmer and more in control. And then you switch to, I'm a producer as well. So you switch in a moment when something's going wrong to the producer element, and you go, okay, I can see why this is good, and this might go viral, and this is funny, and people are going to tweet about this, and this is memorable. You know in a way that when it goes wrong, it isn't really going wrong. It's often going better.
I think actually, if I remember rightly, a lot of the radio shows, when you started to really sort of, forgive me, I've never presented radio, so I don't sound patronizing, but kind of blossom within that role when I heard you on Radio 5.
Yeah, I did.
I think it was often actually the kind of embracing the way things can go wrong as well. It was like allowing it to sort of have these sort of like trite and fun bits,
I like all that, and it suits me, and I'd quite like to do it again. I just don't quite know how, because I wouldn't want to go back on 5 Live full time. And I don't quite know how to do it really. And, from also with these shows and, like I mentioned, trying to start a company that you take money for, so then people are going to go, well, you're on the radio, but I thought we gave you money to build a company, which is it? And you sort of end up, I could do it part-time, I suppose, but I did like that environment, and I liked the multiple subjects that would come in, and I think that probably suits an ADHD brain. The thing that and I'm pleased that my diagnosis and talking about it led to your diagnosis. That's great to hear. And I think the thing that I learned with the diagnosis is the opposite side of the scatty mind is what they call hyperfocus.
Absolutely.
And that's the superpower of it, I think.
I think that and the creativity.
Yeah. I think your understanding of the hyperfocus bit.
I mean, again, the book I was reading that I mentioned has this, what it calls paradoxical traits. So you got the idea that we're, attention deficit, which is kind of a misnomer. I think this same book says it's more it's an overload of attention. There's like too much attention, which is why you're distracted by things, Yeah. But hyperfocus, I completely experience it. And I think it can be really useful. I produce music, and it means I can focus on the same loop and really work on it, or whereas most people would go, this would be doing my head in. I can really work at it for hours, forget meals, everything.
I think my friend who's got ADHD called Johnny Yo, who's an artist, and I've got quite a lot of stuff here. Like there's a piece of his over there on the wall over there.
Wow.
But he he says it's great to have more than one project at once as well. So for hyperfocus, if you have one, it's probably not. It may not be that healthy with a mind that at some level does want to keep moving. And it may be that if you only have one project, you can over-obsess about it in the way that a teenager might over-obsess about, someone they're dating. That you might put too much into one thing. And it's sort of healthier with the ADHD mind to have hyperfocus, but have 2 or 3 or more projects, and then go into them. And anyone, I think with the creative project, finding an idea and then working on it and improving it is something I really love. And and it is anyone without ADHD, if they like something, will focus on it because you like it. But we have it, I think, to a more extreme degree. Then I think it helps creatively. I think it helps with that. Wants to be in that and to shut it out and be in that kind of zone, I think is really great. And that's, I'm always writing new ideas, and I put them in the notes on my iPhone, or I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and refine them. But you know that you're going in something that you like, and that in that moment, the hyperfocus. So I love that, and I think the diagnosis and understanding that element of it has made me use it, and I think that's been helpful. That's a reason, I think, why it's good to get a diagnosis. Just because you understand how you can use it, how it uses you to your disadvantage, but you can use it to your advantage as well.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that, but just talking about the hyperfocus, I think it's interesting because there are books not to do with ADHD that talk about that flow state people talk about when artists and stuff get in. And I think hyperfocus is a flow state, really. It's defined because it can go for so long in ADHD brains. And I think generally that flow state, the more I read in various areas, is kind of, that's when you know your purpose is engaged. That's when you know your actual soul is working, and I think that's a great thing to have, to be honest. I happened once, I was driving back, it's a bit like a JFK moment, but everyone remembers where they were when Michael Jackson...
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you were on the radio. I hope I haven't imagined that, because people also imagine things sometimes, but I'm pretty sure that was right.
No, that's true. That was a really interesting night, because that was when I was doing a nighttime show on Radio 5 Live.
And a fun show, it had quite, like sort of almost silly elements in it. And you would have had to just throw that in the bin and switch to serious. You're having to take news in, but actually probably not that much coming in, but you're having to keep repeating it and keep it going and focus.
I think,
but you did it. You really did, and I think that is an ADHD brain as well.
Yeah, that was an interesting night because they told me you died before say it, and so I knew in the headphones, but there wasn't fully confirmed, but very likely. So you know something that you can't tell the audience, and so and then you just throw the running order out, and then you just talk about that, and then you do it on the fly. On the fly, and that happened with Margaret Thatcher's death as well. Actually, that was in the afternoon, and her death was announced 10 minutes before my show started at 2 p.m. And I can read and take things in really quickly when I need to. So in those 10 minutes, I just zinged a load of research, and by 10 minutes later, I was ready to go. And with a 2 hour with Thatcher.
I mean, do you think that? I mean, maybe I'm stating the obvious. I personally do, but do you think ADHD brains do function quicker?
Yeah,
neurotypical. You know, like it seems to be the case.
It can't be true of like everyone.
I don't know exactly.
I think they do move quicker. Yeah, I think they move quicker. I think they help me think differently. It is different for different people. It's a spectrum, and after my diagnosis that I spoke about publicly that you heard, there was people contacting me, like parents saying, "Oh, can you talk to my teenage son about ADHD?" I'm just going to plug my phone in. One thing about having ADHD is your phones are never charged. Guys on 1%. Hang on. Quick. Okay, there it is. You're still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. Thank goodness.
That was close. And so I think that, and sometimes I would meet them, and it'd be interesting to meet them, but you realise they were so different to whatever my version of ADHD is. They were very, very troubled in the moment, and I'm, of course I can worry about things, but I'm quite happy-go-lucky. And like all of these things, including much more serious mental afflictions like autism, everything is on some sort of spectrum, and so it is difficult to generalise, I think, with ADHD. But I think, in my experience of people, the high-functioning people that have it, because for some people, it hits them hard and they can't be high-functioning, they can't really get on with their lives.
Yeah.
But for the high-functioning people, I think our brains probably do move quicker. Yeah. I think that's probably just as true. And that can be a disadvantage, because there is that side where you're not only looking for stimulation, you can look for stimulants.
Oh, absolutely.
And, I drink and, I've taken lots of drugs in my life. And that's probably also a consequence of a brain moving quite quickly. It's probably also, so it's both, but the upside is if you're in a crisis, if you like doing the sorts of jobs that I've done, trying to come up with ideas, it can be advantageous. But the downside, which has been a downside for my family, is that also that brain is also just looking for stuff, isn't it, all the time?
Well, there is an element, I think, in the stats. Like around the time where I heard your interview, I started really looking back into it. I'd already applied for a diagnosis, but it was on a long waiting list.
Yeah.
And then I looked up and I found out stats like 20 to 25% of people in rehab have ADHD. I mean, that's such a shocking statistic. And then you realize that actually, things you may have berated yourself for, maybe drinking too regularly, too much for many years, is actually quite potentially not an excuse, but you are self-medicating. You're literally self-medicating chemicals in your brain to either relax off the high intensity or to possibly get that adrenaline or whatever it is that those things give you. And really it's quite surprising. And it helped me a lot with understanding that, actually. It really did.
I think it's like what the guy at the Amen Clinic, which is the place I went to for my ADHD diagnosis in Orange County in California, is they did a brain scan and they showed me the prefrontal cortex from the brain scan, which was darker in the brain scan, which they said to me meant that I had a slower blood flow. And so instinctively what people do is you correct that with a couple of drinks or more.
Yeah.
And there are certain things like stimulants from cocaine to coffee that do help with that. Booze doesn't technically help with it, but it does for a couple of drinks. Feels like it does. And so it may be that you're self-correcting, and in the process of self-correcting when you're young, you then end up with a bit of an addiction.
I suspect that the stimulants is probably to do with like your enjoyment of live radio and the sort of adrenaline flowing. The stimulants is probably more along the lines of correcting the lack of stimulant transmission within the brain. I think the alcohol sometimes can be to sort of actually more medicate against the anxiety and the sort of hyperness. I think, I don't know. That's
slow down a bit.
Pop psychology.
You can become more focused, can't you, I think? Not in a hyper-focused way, but I think if you drink with an ADHD person, you can sort of just gently focus on things a bit for a while. You sort of go, oh, right, I'm in this moment now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually thought that many times, to be honest, with drugs, because I weed gummies here, looking up at a bag of them up there, because they're legal here. But I suppose a funny sort of thing, people talk about being in the moment, and actually... fortunately or unfortunately, with drugs and alcohol, it does put you in the moment, doesn't it? It just put you in the moment, and
but you're present, as it were, though in your own world, present at that point.
You're sort of slightly less jumping around and slightly more. Although there's downsides, because in those moments, then at some point you look for more. I'm like that. I'll have more. I'll have more. But it's but what I have found though is, I think some of the most interesting ideas that I've had, and my sort of future ones, have often been about a drink and a weed gummy, and some parameters are removed, and then you spot something, and then I write a note to myself and see it in the morning. And I think that, I'm not saying I can't have ideas without that, because I can, but it definitely, there's a reason that people with ADHD drink and take drugs, isn't there? There's a reason.
Exactly.
Very, very common. What percentage of people have ADHD?
Well, in America, they say it's about 5%. I've only just been doing an article on this, but in the UK, it's about 2%. But the number diagnosed in the UK is really, this is what my article's about. It stands at, this was in 2018. They said it was about 1.5 million, they reckon, adults have ADHD. And only 120,000 have been diagnosed. So that's quite a shocking disparity, really. And that's what I was trying to write about, is the cost that has on people and actually society. Because you think of what the alcoholism that's going to lead into, the, even prison populations, the suicide rates, the divorce rate, all of this stuff, it feels so shocking that no one's really supporting it at all.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So I was just wondering, because one of the things that ADHD that really helped me when I learned about it was RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. The fact that you can people with ADHD can often have quite emotional, almost worries or reactions, and can spiral, especially around, they say, rejection or being sensitive to what someone said to you or whatever. And I hadn't realized this is something I suffered, but I noticed that you have such a positive, persona, public persona. And I know you have to, but it's very positive and cheerful. And yet part of ADHD can be rumination and self-criticism and lowering your own self-esteem.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you navigate the difficult parts?
I don't know until I feel that. What's that called again? What?
It's called RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria. It's effectively an emotional dysphoria. So, now that I understand that it exists...
What, people with ADHD have that a lot, do they?
Yeah, apparently so. I didn't know about this till I was told about it about 2 years into it. But I do notice that it is true. I mean, in workplaces... I would probably, because I'd say, have I offended you? What's up? Or I would ruminate about it for ages and not let go. And I think that's ADHD as well.
I don't think I have that. I don't. I'm a bit unoffendable. I'm not that worried. But there's a whole other side to my life of being. You go on the radio and people hate you and tell you they hate you. And I've been through quite a lot of things in my life. I don't really have that, I don't think.
Don't really care.
I'm not worried about.
Yeah. Well, so something personally I'm just starting to learn, which sounds obvious, is, and I'm actually starting to think it rather than just be told it, that actually it comes down to, if I value myself enough, other people's values will either fit with that or won't matter as much. So I'm just starting to process that through, really.
Yeah.
you've kind of actually really, it's been lovely so far talking, because most of the things that I was going to ask you, you've already kind of gone through. I was going to just ask you quickly, I mean, on the feeling, how did you feel when you were diagnosed, and has that changed?
Well, I thought it was interesting. He said I had it quite severely, and then, and he said Rebekah, who you just met, may well have saved my life because she's certainly not got it, and is very, very sensible, stabilizing and calm influence. And, if I think I'd gone out with another ADHD person who liked drinking and taking drugs, then that could be quite destructive. And so, I felt all right about it, really. I just found, I find most things interesting. And so it's just like something else to find interesting.
Fantastic. Okay, so I've got a kind of game thing, which
Good.
I'm gonna quickly show you now.
Great.
And again, I might have to re-edit this and stuff, but I'll show you the basics.
So I've not framed this very well, but it's
all right.
My phone is never charged fully.
So here we go. Well, for this last part of the podcast, I was inspired by the Richard Bacon style of radio feature design. I was working on what to call it, and I came up with the kind of AC/DC ADHD theme, but then what to call the actual section. Well, I did consider working with our particularly esteemed guest name, so kind of obviously I got Bacon Black. Then I realised it needs to work with more than one guest name. So, sadly, Bacon was eliminated, as it seemed to me interviews with either Francis or Kevin were not really very likely. Then the genius hit me. You ready for it? Highway to Hell. So, the way this works is there is a Wheel of Fortune style wheel, and each segment of the wheel contains a common trait of ADHD. We're going to spin the Highway to Help wheel 3 times. And wherever it lands, the guest reads out the chosen trait and then offers one or more of the following: an interesting or amusing anecdote of when this trait has affected them, how they struggle with this trait, or how they've tamed, harnessed, or even enjoyed this trait in their lives. So it's effectively an ADHD Wheel of Fortune, but it's actually the Highway to Help.
So, it's great. I thought that was excellent. I think you put loads of work into that. I thought it was really, really good. I don't know how you find the time to do all that. It's really... I've made
because
TV
I've got
shows.
ADHD brain.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk about impulsivity? Is that the idea?
If you want, or you can choose another couple. It's up to you.
No, I think it's really... Hey, Becca, are you free? I'm going to bring my wife in. She can come in. But you might have to sit on my lap. I've got on my chair on a podcast, badly lit.
What do you want help with?
Just sit here.
Why?
We're playing ADHD Wheel of Fortune.
Okay.
Good.
That's good.
So, impulsivity. So, talk back to my impulsive. In what way?
Well, with money, for example.
Right.
What was the last impulsive thing?
The last impulse. Well, I mean, it's daily, really. I mean, it's a lot. So there was something. What are you saying that we really needed? And I was saying it was very kind, but he was offering, he'd been to a bike shop to get his bike fixed, and he was wanting to buy me a bike, which was really nice of him. But I was saying, we live up a really big hill. I was like, I'm just not going to use it. It's a really generous offer. But he had it in his head so much. And I was just having to go, please don't buy me a bike. Please don't waste, I don't know, hundreds of pounds or dollars. But he was just so like, I think had this vision, maybe we'll go on a bike ride together one day. So he's going, I'm going to buy the bike. And he's going, no one wants the bikes. Don't buy the bike. But just getting him out of the headspace is the tricky thing.
Yeah.
Do you have a bike now?
No.
It actually had a motor on it, so it would have been good for the hill, just so you know.
Yeah, I know, but I just wouldn't use it. It would just sit in our...
I've got to admit, me with bikes and hills, no. But yeah, with a motor, it might be a bit better.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty impulsive, aren't I? Making quick decisions and going out and doing things, and whether big things like moving to America to just, let's go here, let's do that, let's do this.
Yeah, and I think
let's go now.
I think that I think we've got two kids. One child finds it quite fun, and the other one gets a bit nervous because they don't mind impulsivity, but they get nervous if they're alone and it's Richard doing it, and they're right to, because they know that some things get forgotten, and the kids often want, consistency and, still and calm and an understanding of, that their needs are going to get looked after. And if someone's going boom, 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 boom with them, they do get a bit nervous.
Yeah, fair enough. I get that. Routines are really important, but then it's very tempting with a kid if someone's being impulsive to, okay, but then,
Yeah, one goes, this is great, and how can I benefit from this? And the other one just gets a bit withdrawn, a bit nervous, and...
Oh, goodness.
When's Mum going to tell?
Look, Chris has built an ADHD Wheel of Fortune called Highway to Help.
Idea.
It's good, isn't it?
Great.
No, it's quite good, isn't it?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Sounds good, like the way it zooms in. Yeah, stay on creative or embarrassing. I'm definitely good at that one.
Yeah.
I mean, that one comes down to the hyperfocus thing we talked about, which is, I think it's about your brain pings around. I'm very inquisitive, which I don't know if that's part of ADHD. I'm interested in lots of different things, which is probably part of ADHD. Then you have the hyperfocus. And I do think I think differently. I work with a lot of people in TV, and I think a lot of them think conventionally. And you notice it, and that's okay, because they've had these jobs for a long time. And I'm relatively new to this, coming up with the entertainment formats thing. And I definitely think differently, and I definitely want to do things differently, and I can really focus and fall on, with an idea, I'd really fall in love with it, can't I?
Yeah.
I'm doing it all the time, aren't I?
Yeah.
All the time I'm thinking about ideas.
Does it offend people? Does it offend people ever when you're saying, but we can do it like this, and no, but we don't do it that
all
way?
the time. No,
Yeah,
I do upset people. Well, seriously, they get upset with me because I'm very creatively clear, and I was trying to work out why people get upset with me on projects, and I think it's because when you are in television, it's meant to be a bit more collaborative than I am, I suppose. And I have the idea, I can see what I want it to be, I think of every detail of it, I can look at an edit and go, do this, that. And other people are like, well, I want to put my stamp on it, and that creates tension. And it's not that I don't rate them, it's just I think about all the details, and I'm ready to go.
I really sympathise with that. From when I was like a senior teacher, I would be coming in with ideas that we'd run, but I'd have to go and see another senior teacher to say, right, I need your permission to, I don't know, use the school hall, or I need to get those kids out of class so we can do this event. And because I've already worked it all out, and I'm being passionate about it, if someone says no, I can't even hide it in my face. I'm just like, I'll try explaining again, because obviously you haven't understood me, because it's quite clear why it will work. And that seems to, I think, offend people, but it's more innocence. It's not me trying to bully them. It's like...
That's what I think. I kind of get in trouble for it. I'm like, I'm not trying to do anything hurtful. I'm just pretty clear about what I want. And I don't
I'm just
think...
trying to explain again.
People are okay with one person having all the thoughts.
Yeah.
In TV, it's expected that everyone's collaborative, but I never like it.
I think the problem is it's also quite hard for you to engage, and maybe for you also from your story in school, with the whole, that's true, we should talk about the hall and we should talk about those logistics, because those bits aren't really in the front of your mind. They're the sort of boring shit that hopefully someone else, that needs to get done, but you are focused on the thing. So therefore those sort of conversations around them, I imagine that you in particular are not great at, or get impatient with. Or
that is true.
Yeah.
But creativity is a good one, Chris. I like that one. That's good, isn't it?
There's another one. I don't know if this is worth mentioning as well, which I'll edit it later. But there's a funny thing they called it the lightning rod in this book I was reading recently. Which now this seems so non-scientific, but it's a scientific book. But they were saying that they can't explain why, but they can only say it's true because every patient they deal with has this, and they call it lightning rod, which is if something's going to go wrong, it's often you will experience it to a certain extent. So they give an example: if 20 people were smoking weed at school, you'll be the one caught doing it, or whatever it might be, and that often this will happen. And I'm just wondering if you'd subscribe that possibly that's in. I feel with me that does happen, that not the smoking weed specifically, but things do tend to, if it's going to go wrong, it will happen with me. But then I guess it's a blessing because we've got quick minds to deal with it. I don't know.
That is true, Bex, isn't it? Things.
Yeah, everything's happened to you. That's because you're doing more things and you're pushing yourself to do slightly riskier things or impulsive and not worrying about consequences. So you are creating more conditions where you're going to get in trouble, or stuff's going to go slightly wrong, and you're going to have to confess or tell people or get help to sort of come out of it. So I think that's just because you guys are doing slightly more risque stuff that you are going to be involved. And I think as well, there's an adventurous side, isn't there? And as I said, there's a slight lack of consequences consideration. So you're, pushing the boundaries, I think.
But look, when I was on a radio station called XFM, my whole show was a lot of the show was built around me telling stories and about things that happened to me the night before. And often things would have happened the night before. But I think Rebekah's right. It's like, you put yourself in certain contexts or situations, or you keep doing things, you keep moving, that create...
I'm really shocked the simplicity of that explanation, that, you tend to put yourself in more situations than other people, and I'm like...
Where things might go wrong, or where things can go wrong. Yeah,
that's a good point. Maybe you're right there, actually, yeah. Just a couple of last things that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Do you have any sort of tips or suggestions or life hacks for ADHD? I mean, is there anything that you've learned to do in any way?
I think you want to learn to think of it and use it, and so once you've understood it, and it's good to get a professional diagnosis, then you want to ask yourself how you can use it to your advantage, because in unseen ways it will have helped you in your life, and in probably quite clear ways it won't have. And so I think it's about looking at it positively and saying, now I understand what it is, the nature of what my desires are, my impulses, this thing we call hyperfocus is here available to me. Then I think it's more, get the diagnosis and then understand it, or for you or for one of your kids, and then work out how, given the nature of your life, your job, the parameters of your existence, work out how maybe it could help you. It will still disadvantage you, and I've still not cleared up my own addiction issues, really. And, even this morning I woke up thinking, I can't have another drink for a few days, but it's about knowing it and then working out how you can use it to make your life better. And if you have a kid who's got it, or, who you think has got it, then it is useful to get them diagnosed, because I think, I was an inquisitive person when I was a teenager, and I think if I'd understood the nature of ADHD, how it pertains to addiction, stimulants, and alcohol, all those things. I think if I'd had that self-knowledge younger, then I'd have had a different life. And so I think it's about thinking about how you can use it, literally use it for you. But also, if you are a parent listening to this, then and you think one of your kids has got it, even if the kids are now grown up and they're in their 20s, it's still worth finding out. I didn't find out until I was 43 or something. It's not that long ago.
Yeah, it was really similar with me. I think I'm about a year younger than you. It's a really similar time,
Yeah.
It's interesting you're saying that, though, because it leads to... There is one other question, but it leads to my last question that I'd prepared, which was... So finally, with all that you know, if you were offered the chance to relive your life without ADHD, would you take it?
Well, it's just impossible to know, because that leads you that all my life I would probably married someone different or not married. I'd probably be in a different career, and I don't know whether that marriage would be happy or that career would be any. I don't know. So it becomes a hypothetical that's quite profound in a way. I mean, there are tiny things happening to you every day that change the outcome of your life potentially.
Wow, you have gone profound now. You've actually gone very serious in the face. That's really profound. I'm not offering you the chance to be going backwards in your life. I was just, I'm just interested because I don't know. You seem pretty happy as things are.
I don't really know.
Well,
it's like saying, that one. Would you like to be a different person? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. That's basically my answer. But I think on balance, you know, I've had an exciting life, fun life. Are you going, Bex? Do you want a little kiss before you leave in front of Chris? But for the podcast, because the great thing about having ADHD is you feel the need to tell your wife that you love her a lot.
Yeah,
But Rebekah says it's really nice to meet you, Chris.
No, it's lovely to meet her too.
It's nice to meet you. What was I talking about? I can't even remember. But
you got too profoundly affected by that. I'm going to move you off that. Just let me know what projects you're working on, or what projects we're going to see next on our screens in the near future.
Well, This Is My House season 2 is out in June. It's only next month. Yeah. Second week of June, Friday nights at 8:30 on BBC One. It's the slot where Would I Lie to You normally is. It's a big slot. Yeah. There's 9 episodes, and I'm just every day I'm up early editing them, because of the time difference with Britain. Then I'm coming home and I'm filming, I literally just told you, with Jimmy Carr, which I write and produce and created, and that's we're doing 8 of those 3 celebrity specials. That'll be on Channel 4 in September, I believe. Fantastic. I'm going to make that a big chaotic show. Hosting Good Morning Britain in August. So you could see me hosting Good Morning Britain in August. My main focus at the moment really isn't really any of them. I mean, they're all, you know, This Is My House involves a lot of work. Literally, it's going to involve a lot of work from like June, July. But my main focus is starting this company and raising the finance and finding and working out who that should be. And, you know, that's not what I'm used to doing. It's not what an ADHD mindset likes doing. And so I'm doing something that I don't really enjoy, which is going through the formalities and doing meetings of seeing who wants to put money. That's all. I don't really like that bit, but that's the sort of main focus of my work now. I've got to get that right so that then I can write loads more ideas and get them out there.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, and I cannot thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. And
pleasure.
Especially, I mean, obviously, you're a bit like me. We've both sat down for a good long while, but you don't seem to like sitting down that much. We had a good round of pacing and stuff. Really, it's been a real pleasure. I can't thank you enough, and thank you for agreeing to do this out of the blue. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really insightful. I've learned a lot as well, so thank you very much.
Best of luck with everything, though I don't think you really need it, mate. Good luck.
Thank you, Chris. Nice to meet you, mate.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.